Is there an avalanche of foreclosures coming to the United States? My name is Andrew Warburton. I'm the property advisor, and I'm going to answer that question factually in this video. We're going to look at who goes into foreclosure. Will the banks always foreclose? Can the banks always foreclose? And when they do, who pays? And at the end, I'm going to give you a conclusion that is founded in fact. So I want to ask you to stay with me through the video. And I want to ask, connect with me and have a relationship with me. Because every week, 5 times a week, I'm going to give you a video that updates you on what's happening with foreclosures and with the real estate market in the United States. Would you just click that like and let me know that you like what you're hearing? And if you would, please click that subscribe so that we can follow each other over the coming months as this strange economy unfolds in the United States. I'd really appreciate it. So connect with me, click subscribe, click a like, and let's get on with the meat of this video. So, is there an avalanche of foreclosures coming to America? Number one, I want you to know the stats. Foreclosure filings. Now, understand there's a difference between foreclosure filings and foreclosure. There can be months, sometimes years, between the foreclosure filing and a foreclosure where the home actually reverts back to the bank. So I'm going to give you foreclosure filing statistics. Right now, of all the housing units in America, 0.36% of all the housing units in America are in foreclosure. 0.36%. In 2010, that rose as high as 2.23%, almost 2% higher. So right now, foreclosures are in a record low. Foreclosure filings, even in the first quarter of 2019, are at a record low. So those are the facts. Then you might say, yes, but Andrew, what about all of the people who are unemployed? What about all of the people who are in forbearance? Well, that's what this video is for, so we can really break that down. Let's have a look at this. Who goes into foreclosure? 3 categories mainly of people who go into foreclosure. First of all, somebody who can't pay. You simply are watching this video and you cannot pay. Well, right now you have the forbearance arrangements. That's pretty much 12 months. And we know that the HEROES law is coming down the pike and it may be extended even further. You can change a lot in your life in 12 months. You can learn a new industry. You can get a real estate license and start to sell real estate. So there's a period of forbearance. But who goes into foreclosure? That is people, first of all, who can't pay. Secondly, people who won't pay. This is what happened in 2006 and 2007, I should say in 8 and 9. Is there were a lot of people who just got angry with the banks and said, I'm not going to pay. They shouldn't have given me that loan. I didn't want that loan. I'm not going to pay. That's dangerous to the United States economy. It hurts everybody. And the third category is people who say, look, it just doesn't make sense for me to pay. My house has dropped so much in value. The payment's gone up so much. It doesn't make any sense. It's better for me to restructure my life, maybe file bankruptcy and so on, but that creates a lot of turmoil. So you really don't want to go there unless you need to go there. And now the government is creating this buffer zone where you have time to restructure. So I want you really to think about restructuring before you just throw your hands up in the air and shoot in flames 5 years of your life. So who goes into foreclosure? We said 3 types of people. Now, will banks always foreclose? Again, I want to encourage you, don't play Russian roulette with the banks. If you don't pay, eventually you're going to lose that piece of property. But do the banks always want to foreclose? Are they really that bad guy out there? Remember, without the banks, you can't buy a car. Without the banks, you can't buy a house. Without the banks, you can't get interest. So the banks play an important role in our society, but will they always foreclose? So the first answer to that is, can they always foreclose? There are moratoriums right now all across the United States where it's not lawful for the banks to close. Those moratoriums could be extended. They often are extended. Moratoriums came in the teens of the 2000s. Moratoriums are where a bank cannot foreclose. That doesn't mean you can just willy-nilly not make any payments and there's not going to be any recourse. Eventually, that money has to be paid back. But is somebody like, are you waking up in a sweat in the middle of the night that somebody's going to knock on your door? If there's a moratorium on foreclosures, the banks cannot foreclose on your home. They can't start the process. Secondly, do they want to? So the answer to that question is it's a matter of options. The banks have several options, and this has changed since I was younger. When I was younger, it was basically you didn't pay, a certain period of time later you lost your home. Now banks aren't so motivated to do that. They're more interested in rearranging the loan, in modifying the loan, in modifying the payments. So the banks are perhaps a short sale, but very often loans that go into foreclosure, it's a foreclosure filing, but doesn't end up as a foreclosure. It could end up as a sale, it could end up as a short sale. And the third answer to the question, do banks always foreclose, is do they have enough money? What happened, remember, because of the securities issue in the mid-2000s, the teens, was the banks did not have enough money. They had a liquidity crisis. There was not enough money there. And so they had to sell the real estate that they owned, and they sold it cheap just so they could get money back in their coffers. Right now, the banks are cash rich. So I would say, honestly, the banks are not motivated to take back a ton of property, administrate all that property, hire a bunch of real estate people to sell that property. They would much prefer to deal with the owners of the property. That's the best option every time for the banks. So who goes into foreclosure? Will the banks always foreclose? And now, when there is a foreclosure, who pays? Who pays when there's a foreclosure? Well, of course, first, if there's a loss, it's the banks. And you know, there's sort of a bandwagon that everybody jumps on that goes, all these bad banks, and how bad are the banks, and how terrible are the banks. But remember, we need banks in our society. They're important to us. Again, I say, you can't buy a house without a bank. You can't buy a car without a bank. The banks are important. So do we really want the banks to collapse? I know it feels good emotionally, but is it logical and sensible? Probably not. So the banks do pay when there's foreclosure, when there's a lot of them. Secondly, the borrower pays. You go, well, how come the borrower pays? I thought there was no recourse judgment in the state of California. Well, there isn't most of the time, as long as there's not fraud. But the borrower does pay. Why? Because the borrower loses their credit. The borrower loses the ability to buy. You lose the ability to dream. And maybe 5 years of your life are soaked up in the foreclosure process. So not only do the banks pay, the borrower pays. And who's the third entity that pays in foreclosure? It's the government. And that's why we're all watching the government so closely right now, because again, it's not in the government's interest that banks collapse. Therefore, the banks create infusions of money. They either guarantee the loans, so banks are secure enough to continue to make more loans if there's foreclosures, or there is government funding towards the banks to keep them liquid so that our system continues to operate. That's the way America works. You know, if you don't like it, you probably shouldn't be here. That's the way America works. It doesn't help anybody to say, let's go smash the windows of banks. We need the banks. So who pays? The banks or the borrower or the government? So bottom line, are we looking at an avalanche of foreclosures? Please understand, we will probably see more foreclosures because there are people who will not go back to work. I want you to watch my video about job evictions as opposed to job layoffs. Very, very important distinction. Many of these people who are laid off will come back to work. Many new jobs will be created. But will there be an avalanche? What I'm sharing with you is for a year you have moratoriums. Maybe the moratoriums will be extended. There's going to be a large tranche of frozen real estate inventory in the United States. That will not automatically become foreclosures. Will you wake up on August the 1st and there's foreclosures all down the street? That's not going to happen. It's not lawfully possible. So look 1 to 2 years out to see foreclosures ticking up. There is not going to be an avalanche of foreclosures in the United States. Those creating that panic have power control, power grab interests. I appeal to you again. These videos through the Property Advisor are so that we can live more calm, more factual lives where we're not manipulated by propaganda, neither from the left nor from the right, and certainly not from people who are going to profit from your difficulties in life. I want to encourage you, write questions in the comments below. Again, if you haven't already, I invite you to like this video so that I see what you like and what you don't. And I want to ask you to subscribe and begin a relationship with me. So over coming years, as you have questions when one of my videos goes live, which it does 5 times a week, you're going to get notified and we can renew our conversation together. Thank you so much for watching The Property Advisor.